for the introduction and the kind words. And also, thank you very much for inviting me to come to visit your lovely vihara. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to spend even a short time here with you, and especially this evening, to have the opportunity to discuss Dharma with you. It is a little difficult to give talks to a group of people whom one has never met before, because the way we approach Dhamma, the way we think about Dhamma, depends a lot on our temperaments, on our personalities, and on our conditioning, so that you may approach Buddhism in a different way than what I'm used to. However, I'm sure that we share some basic similarities. I think and I hope that for all of us, Buddhism is not just a belief, not just a philosophy, not just a set of rituals, not just another ornament. I hope that Buddhism is something very personal and very relevant and very important to our lives. For me, when I came across Buddhism, I was not at all interested in religion. As a teenager, I'd been brought up as a Catholic, but I found it very irrelevant. I didn't think it was really relevant to life. The idea of believing about something that I could not know directly seemed to be very irrelevant to me, and I didn't believe very easily. My temperament does not believe very easily, and so I found that religion both difficult and also irrelevant. So I decided it would be better to have no religion. So I went through life for a number of years with no religion. And I wasn't interested in religion. I didn't see the need. I didn't see the relevance. I thought, I can live a good life. I know what I want to do. I know what I can do. I'll just do that. And so when I finished my studies and went to work, I considered myself an agnostic or an atheist, someone who doesn't believe or doesn't care or doesn't know. But that doesn't mean that I didn't have an interest in what this life is about, because I think all of us, at one stage or another during our lives, question and think and want to know, what are we here for, and what are we doing, and who are we, and is there something that's an ultimate reality, an ultimate truth? Is there an ultimate meaning to life, or is this just an accident? What's the purpose? So I think many of us have these thoughts, question, but very few of us can find satisfactory answers. The majority of humanity is quite prepared to accept mediocre answers. Mediocre answers means you accept what somebody else tells you and take it on their guarantee. you believe, but you don't know. That is a mediocre answer, mediocre solution. You don't know, but you believe, you think they know. I wasn't prepared to do that. But I still wanted to know. And I had this strange feeling, even as a youth, as a teenager, about the same age as some of you here this evening. I thought, now I know, I feel that the truth is within me. I know the truth must be there somewhere, but I don't know how to get to it. Just don't know where to find it. Because when you ask these questions, what is this all about, and who am I, and what is reality, you come up against a brick wall, because your thinking can't solve it. Your thinking can't resolve it. And actually that was one of the reasons why I chose to study science as a student, because I was hoping it would answer some of these questions for me. But after finishing my studies, I was not any wiser. I knew a few more facts and figures about other things, but nothing of any consequence. And also I had a very interesting experience, because once I finished my studies, I had the opportunity to work with some very, very highly educated people, because I was involved in some research. And so I was assisting some very highly educated and top of that, say, profession in chemistry, all with their doctor's degrees and PhDs from America and England and all these places. And I was very happy to work with them, because I thought they would know the answer surely. But after working with these people, I began to realize that they were no different to me. Despite all their education, they were much the same as me. They didn't know. And also, they suffered from the same predicament as I did. You get angry, you have anxiety, you have jealousy, you have fear, the same problems that everyone else has. And it was through that experience that I decided that I didn't want to study anymore. I didn't think that would give anything new to me. And so I decided to go traveling. And I happened to come to Malacca here 20 years ago, 19 years ago. But nothing happened, nothing very special. I just mentioned that I was here because I was traveling through Southeast Asia, and I was visiting here, visiting some friends whom were living here. But during this period of travel, I had many experiences which reinforced this feeling that I had, that regardless of what you learn about the external world, regardless of what knowledge you may acquire or where you go, if you don't understand the mind, then you don't understand anything of any consequence. And if you can't make the mind peaceful, what's the use of achieving all those other things? So, after traveling for about 8 months, I found myself in Thailand. And this feeling grew in me. I realized more and more clearly that regardless of where I went, it was me going, this mind, and I was taking my habits, my fears, my anxieties, my jealousies, my anger with me wherever I went. The scenery changed, But the habits, all the defilements, I didn't know they were defilements at that time. I thought they were just what I was supposed to be like. But it was unpleasant to be like that. It wasn't very nice to be full of anger or to be full of greed. It's not nice to be full of anxiety and fear. It's suffering. So I eventually decided to stop traveling. And by that time I had come across Buddhism in Thailand and began to develop an interest in this meditation. I wasn't interested in religion. I didn't care about religion, but I was very interested in the mind. I was very interested in finding some answers to life. And most of all, I was very interested in developing more peace within my own heart. And it was through that I started to meditate, that I started to practice Buddhism. So for me, Buddhism has never been like a belief. It wasn't my religion from the start. It's something I chose. It's something that I saw as being extremely relevant, important. So that I saw it as a teaching, a path, a tool, in order to help me as a human being to achieve that which I'd always been aspiring to, understanding and peace. And speaking quite truthfully, I think this is what the Buddha intended. When the Buddha taught, he taught the Dharma. He taught the Dharma for the happiness and the liberation of human beings. He did not encourage people to just accept and believe and leave it at that. The whole purpose of his mission, if you wish, was to encourage people to walk the path so they could experience and realize this which he had experienced and realized, peace and happiness. So I think that this is how Buddhism should be seen. The path of training whereby a human being can attain true peace and true liberation. Now this path of the Buddha is a very comprehensive path. It reaches every aspect of life because it's to do with you. The teaching of the Buddha is talking about you. It's talking about your mind, your body, your speech. It's talking about your whole life. So we must not think of the teaching of the Buddha as one isolated little thing. And many people do this. So that in traditional Buddhist cultures, such as in Thailand, and I expect it's probably the same amongst the Chinese Buddhists in Malaysia, Burma, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, all much the same. They take one little part of Buddhism, or many people, to the devotional, making of offerings, giving of dana. This is wonderful, lovely thing to do, most praiseworthy. But it is only one part, because there is so much more to the teaching of the Buddha. On the other hand, from my experience of teaching people in Australia, I noticed that Australians who are becoming increasingly interested in the teaching of the Buddha still tend to only want one little part. The part they prefer is meditation. They think they want to meditate. And that's all they want, is to learn how to meditate. That's the aspect of Buddhism, to meditate. Now this is not satisfactory, and it cannot give you the results that the Buddha intended, because the Buddha taught a whole path of training, comprehensive. It reaches every aspect of your life. It's to do with your mind, it's to do with your heart, it's to do with your emotions, it's to do with the way you live, the way you relate, the way you work. It's to do with all of life. So we must try and understand the whole path and follow, develop the path in harmony. Because if it's not in harmony, then just like a group of singers, a band, an orchestra, when they play their instruments not in harmony, it's not very nice. The same way, when we practice Buddhism or take up Buddhism in an unbalanced way, then the results will not be all that good. So this path in harmony means that we have the whole path and we apply it in our lives, so that we live in accordance with Dharma. To live in accordance with Dharma means that our life is compatible to Dhamma. Dhamma, the goal is peace, purity, freedom. So our lives must be compatible with that. Our lives must be moving towards purity, towards peace, towards freedom. This is why we begin with the very basics, such as morality. That is to help make our lives more compatible with Dhamma. Because if we live lives which are full of unskillful actions and speech, then our lives are not compatible with Dhamma. You cannot move towards peace. You cannot move towards enlightenment. Not because anyone is going to punish you, but simply because the result of living unskillfully, doing foolish things, means that your mind becomes afflicted by guilt, remorse, shame, afflicted by all sorts of unwholesome states of mind. And that mind can never become peaceful. That mind can never become happy. The same if our lives is based on living very selfishly. There is no way to become enlightened, no way to achieve peace. This is the most ridiculous misunderstanding with regards to teachings of what we call or what some people call, I don't call it, but some people call the Hinayana school. That Hinayana Buddhists, that's what Theravada, we're supposed to be Hinayana, they attain enlightenment just for their own selfish reason, own selfish enlightenment. That is a most ridiculous statement. You will never attain enlightenment if you're selfish. There is no way that you can even become peaceful by being selfish, let alone attain enlightenment by being selfish. No one is going to be able to get anywhere close to freedom, liberation, enlightenment by being selfish. When we live very self-centered and selfish lives, our minds become constricted, they become miserable. We feel miserable. No joy, no lightness, no happiness. And it is extremely important, if we want to progress on the spiritual path, progress on the path to peace and enlightenment, that we must have joy and happiness in our hearts. So many people misunderstand, think that Buddhism teaches about suffering, so you always have to be miserable. But if you're miserable, you won't get anywhere. You cannot progress. There must be joy and happiness in the heart in order for the mind to attain concentration. If the mind is still afflicted by misery, afflicted by guilt, remorse, afflicted by all sorts of unhappy states, the mind cannot meditate. You will not want to meditate. You cannot meditate. This you can see for yourself. People who do not have a basis of skillful living which brings joy, which brings happiness to the heart, which brings self-respect and self-esteem, it is not possible to meditate. It is not possible to progress in meditation. And this is something that most Western Buddhists discover very quickly. Because there are a lot of Western young people think, well, yeah, great, I'd like to meditate. I'd like to attain these wonderful states of concentration. Maybe learn to levitate. Maybe learn to do some fantastic things. So they come and meditate. But when you meditate, the first thing you have to face, the first thing you have to meet, the first thing you encounter is yourself. To meditate means to be with oneself, to listen to one's own mind, to be with one's own mind. And if the mind is miserable, full of guilt, full of remorse, you don't want to stay with that mind. It's awful. You can't. You quickly get up and run away. This is why people who live immoral lives, people who do very bad things, very selfish lives, they cannot bear to meditate. They cannot bear to sit still and be with themselves. It's so unpleasant. Why? Because you have to be with the memories. You have to be with the guilt and the remorse, and you have to be with the miserable mind. No one can do that. That's a torture. And that's how you torture people. Solitary confinement. But for one who's got a happy mind, one who's living a life that's compatible with Dharma, skillful life, doing good things, being more selfless, so that the mind feels good, you have self-respect, self-esteem, and you have a sense of joy, it's very easy to be with this mind. It's very easy to be with yourself. So this is why it's so important that we begin by making our lives, the way we live, compatible with Dhamma, compatible with the goal of peace and liberation. This is to do with morality or duty, and it's to do with service, so that we use our lives in a way which frees us from guilt and remorse, and we use our lives for service to help others, which brings greater joy into our hearts. Then we find that meditation is very easy. Or let's say much easier. Maybe not so easy, much easier. So then, the practice of meditation, as I said, is dependent on this right living. When there is a basis for peaceful mind, we can do meditation. Meditation is simply getting to know the mind and learning to calm and concentrate this mind. The untrained mind, the Buddha compared to a monkey. You've got lots of monkeys in Malaysia. Nearly 17 million, I'm told. Is that the population of Malaysia? We've got a lot of monkeys in Australia too, about 16 million, I think. The untrained mind is like a monkey. A monkey is a very restless animal. It jumps from one branch to another branch, it grabs at this and it grabs at that, and jumping around all the time. And the human mind that has not been trained is very similar in its behavior. It has no limits, it has no control. It's continually chasing, fighting, chasing after this thing, chasing after that thing, trying to get away from some things or somebody, and continually in a confusion of activity, thinking about the past, thinking about the future, worrying about this and fearing that. This is not a very helpful mind. It's like a jungle. So this mind needs to be trained. It can be trained. It only requires patience. The Buddha gave us many tools for training the mind, many techniques. And there are many schools of Buddhism and they all teach a variety of techniques. So you have teachers coming from different places and they all teach you a different technique. But the technique is not so important. The technique is only a tool. The technique is just a tool to use in order to achieve something. The tool is not so important. What is most important is to develop the skill and to achieve the goal of meditation. So the technique of meditation may be one of many different ones. Maybe some people teach you to concentrate on the breathing, anapanasati, mindfulness of the inhalation and exhalation. Maybe somebody comes and teaches you to repeat a mantra. Maybe somebody else comes and they teach you to visualize bodhisattvas. Maybe somebody else comes and teaches you to do concentration on feelings on the body, and countless variety of things. They're all right. Buddhist meditation is not a technique. Buddhist meditation is the cultivation of the mind. It's not a technique. The Buddha called it citta bhavana, cultivating the mind. That is Buddhist meditation. And cultivating the mind in three areas in particular. The area of effort, right effort. The area of mindfulness, right mindfulness. The area of concentration, right concentration. Whatever the tool, whatever the object of concentration, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that in this meditation practice you develop right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. This is Buddhist meditation, not the technique. The Buddha himself taught many different techniques. The technique is just by the way. The important thing is to cultivate right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So we begin by choosing one thing that we will use as an object to concentrate on. Because the mind, as it is so restless and so confused with thinking, needs somehow to be anchored. We must get hold of the mind, because the mind is just all over the place. You must somehow get hold of it and hold it for a while. Slow it down, anchor it, make it still and make it quiet, so that we can begin to see what's going on and also begin to develop some inner power, inner strength, where the mind becomes a tool fit for work. The mind that is just scattered, just lost in dreaming, thinking, imagining, planning, remembering, that mind is not fit for anything. It's not even fit to read a book. You try to read a book and your mind is just all over the place. You don't even know what you're reading. How many times does that happen to you? You read a page and then you can't remember a word. You can't remember anything. Read it again and again. When your mind is really scattered, it's very difficult to do anything. That mind is not fit for anything, let alone fit for the quest for truth, for self-understanding, which is the highest, most difficult undertaking. So we must get that mind in shape, you see. Just like your body, if you don't do any exercise at all, this is one of the occupational hazards of being a Buddhist monk. Once you get to be a certain sort of seniority, you're always giving talks. And so all you ever do is sit down. People come and get you, you get up and walk to the car and sit down. They drive you to the house, you get up, walk to the house and sit down. Then they feed you, you eat. Then you give a talk, then you get up and walk back to the car and sit down. And so you're just always sitting down. You become just like a Buddha statue. And after a while you become very weak. You see, your body starts malfunctioning. This is why so many monks, senior monks, start developing so many illnesses. Because their bodies are not used. They become weak and overweight and full of problems. And the same with anyone. If the body is not used, you think, okay, if you never do any running, and then you think, today I'm going to run 10 kilometers, do you think you have any hope? No way can you run 10 kilometers. You probably won't even be able to run 100 yards. But if you exercise the body and get it in shape, yes, after a time maybe it is possible to run a 10-kilometer stretch. So, this body needs to be, especially when our goal is something which is quite difficult, you have to get the mind in shape. Instead of allowing it to be so weak and scattered, we discipline the mind. The way to do this is to choose one object, such as the breathing, natural flow of the breath, and to train the mind to focus, to hold on to the breath, to stay with the breath, to sustain attention on the breath. Now this training is simply a training in concentration. It's a way of strengthening the mind, to make it strong. Now, we can all concentrate. You're very good at concentration, all of you. But you can only concentrate on things that you like. Only very exciting things, romantic things. Like you don't have any trouble if you go to the movie, to the cinema, and there's a movie that you really like. You won't have any trouble to be fully absorbed for 1 or 2 hours. You just go there, sit down, and you'll just watch. You become fully absorbed. You won't hear anything. You don't even notice the time. No pain in the legs. You just sit there. entranced, if you really like the movie, so you can be absorbed in certain things. But only things that pull you, only things that pull your mind. So that type of concentration is not of any consequence, because you don't have any power within yourself. You can only concentrate on things that pull your attention, hold your attention. You can only concentrate on those things that you like. So you still have no power, because you're still under the influence of something else. Now, what we mean by strength of mind is a different type of concentration. The strength of mind that the Buddha called samadhi is not being able to concentrate on a movie. It is the strength of mind that is the ability to put your attention on the thing you want to put it on and hold it there. It comes from you. It's not because the object is interesting. The strength is within you. You choose to put your attention on that object. Whether the object is interesting, not interesting, has got nothing to do with it. You choose to put your attention there, and you can put your attention there, and you can hold your attention there. That is strength of mind. That is the strength of samadhi. It's quite a difference. The other one is no strength. The other one is indulgence. And indulgence only weakens your mind further. When you go to watch a movie, you go in there and you're fully concentrated for 2 hours. When you come out, how do you feel? What's the state of your mind? Do you feel clear, bright, alert? Are you able to respond to life with clarity and precision? No. I speak from experience. It's not like that at all. You come out and you feel dazed. It's like you're kind of drunk with so much sensory stimulation, so many images, so much memory. You're in a haze. You walk around hazy, fuzzy, more dull than before, more cluttered than before. The mind is weaker than before, less able to respond than before. The mind is more cluttered with thinking, with images, with memories. It hasn't helped us at all, really. I mean, it may have been pleasurable, but in terms of mind training, it's not mind training. You have developed no greater strength of mind. So meditation is developing the strength of mind that we call samadhi, which means our ability from within us to put our attention on an object that we choose. Not because it's interesting, simply because we choose. We put our attention here, we can hold our attention here. That is strength. And that mind can be a blessing to you. You can do what you want so much more efficiently, so much better. If you want to study, you can study better. If you want to speak, you can speak. If you want to listen, you can listen. These days, people can hardly listen for 5 minutes. Like children in Australia, teachers have a terrible time trying to teach children. Their time span of concentration is so small, so short. They've got to be entertained all the time. They get bored. Just listening for a few minutes, they get bored. Their minds just wander away. The mind is very weak. So now, we have an idea of what we are to develop, this strength of mind. This will be a blessing for us, and it will be an important step towards our goal of inner peace and understanding. The technique is very simple. using the breath or some other object, we put our attention on that object and we remain very alert. Meditation is not falling asleep. That is not meditation. People say, oh, when you meditate you just get dull. That is not meditation, that's dullness. And falling asleep is not meditation. Meditation means the mind fully alert, awake, so that you are with the object. When the mind is holding the object, you know that. Breathing in, you know. Breathing out, you know. When the mind wanders away, you must know it. You must know it quickly. Try to remain very vigilant, very alert, and catch the mind as soon as you can. When you catch it, you don't have to beat the mind. You don't have to beat it up. You don't have to get all angry and get the mind and strangle it. You come back here and stay here. Bash. That will only make you more tense, and you will not become peaceful. You cannot achieve concentration, you cannot achieve samadhi through willpower or through force. You can achieve only tension. You'll get a headache, you'll get tired, you won't be able to do it very long. But you must somehow be able to make right effort to just bring the attention back, put it on the breath, just bring it back and hold it there for one breath, another breath, another breath. Encourage the mind, teach the mind to focus, to hold the object. This is like learning to walk. You try to walk when you're a little baby and you fall down again. You don't give up. You try again and you fall down. How many times? Oh, hundreds of times, thousands of times, but you still try. And eventually you can stand. Amazing. Then you can take a step, then 2 steps. Now you can run. It's exactly the same. Simply by training it with gentle effort, the mind begins to collect, hold attention. It can stand with the meditation object. It's not running all over the place, it's staying, it's quiet, collecting. This is already a state of peace, and it's a state of joy. If we can collect the mind, the more we collect the mind on the object, the more peace, the more joy arises in the heart. Because the concentrated mind is a joyful mind. The concentrated mind is a happy mind. As the mind begins to concentrate, rapture and joy arise. And the Buddha said that the happiness that comes from the concentrated mind is far greater than the pleasure you derive from the sensory world. So that this is the way to develop concentration. It is the way to bring the mind into a state which is fit for the work of realizing truth. There is no way for the mind to realize truth as long as it is cluttered, noisy, distracted. You cannot think your way to truth. Thought is always thinking about. It goes around in a circle and makes you dizzy. In order to come to truth, you must be able to go beyond thought. The mind must become quiet and still. In that silence, many wonderful things can arise. So the Buddha said, dependent on happiness, the mind becomes concentrated. Remember, if your mind is miserable, you will not be able to meditate. So our lives must be compatible with Dharma, so we have joy and happiness. When we have joy and happiness, we can meditate. Through meditation, the mind becomes concentrated. And it is through the concentrated mind that the vision and knowledge of truth can arise. we see things in a very different way. We can begin to understand what the Buddha was saying. Until then, we can't really understand. We think about it, but it still doesn't seem real. It doesn't ring true. But once the mind is able to penetrate and see truth, then what the Buddha taught becomes a reality. So now there's a lot of debates and there's a lot of opposing views and opinions about vipassana meditation, which is the next step on the path. You get the mind in a state which is strong, clear, concentrated, then what are you supposed to do? The rest is the past. So vipassana is that which happens to a human being when their mind has attained to a certain level of development, when their mind is clear, concentrated, when the mind is able to penetrate, when the mind is a tool fit for penetration. So vipassana is that which happens to a human being when their mind has attained to a certain level of development, when their mind is clear, concentrated, when the mind is able to penetrate, when the mind is a tool fit for penetration, so that it can see the nature of experience, so that it can see anicca, dukkha, anatta, see, impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self. And where do you see this? Everywhere. Everything, whether it's external or internal, physical or mental, is proclaiming the truth. This is why the Buddha said, the truth is. Whether a Buddha is born or not born, the truth is. Whether human beings know it or not, the truth is. And the truth is not the Buddha's truth, nor is it a Christian truth, nor is it a Muslim truth, or a Hindu truth, or a science's truth. The truth is. It doesn't belong to anyone. It simply is the reality, the way things are. And it's everywhere, at all times. There's nowhere that you can be, that you'll be separated from truth. It's only, the question is simply whether the human being realizes it or not. And most of us don't realize it. So the truth means the truth of the way things are, the nature, the true nature of everything. The true nature of the physical world, our physical bodies, and our mental world, the true nature of thoughts, the true nature of feelings, the true nature of emotions, the true nature of the mood in the mind, all have exactly the same nature. The nature of impermanence. And the nature of not being able to satisfy us. And the nature of not really being me or mine. Now this is something that the mind can realize through direct experience. And it is this realization which liberates. It is this realization of truth, the truth, that liberates the human being, that makes the human being complete. To be complete means you lack nothing, you need nothing. To be complete means to be perfectly at peace. Now this may sound as if it's very far away, very difficult to do. It is difficult to do. But this is what the Buddha was pointing to. How far we can go on this path? Well, let's find out. You can only start where you are at now. You start where you are at and you take a step. That's all the effort that's required, just to take one step. And then you take another step and see how far you can go. Maybe you'll be able to go a long way, maybe only halfway. But with each step, there's already the fruit. Because you're moving towards peace. So your life is becoming more peaceful. Just by keeping the moral principles, your life is already becoming that little bit more peaceful. Just by developing the generous heart, just by being a little bit more kind and patient, your life is becoming a little more joyful. Practicing meditation, even if you have difficulty, even if it's hard for you, still, just to do a little bit of meditation, just to make the mind a little bit more peaceful, then you are a bit more peaceful. That's already wonderful. To be able to live our lives with more mindfulness, even though we forget very often, but still, just to be able to bring more mindfulness into our hearts, to be more centered, to be more peaceful, just one little bit more, one little more step. That's already wonderful, isn't it? So this is not a matter of thinking in terms, oh, I'll never be able to attain that. It doesn't matter. Just take one step. Wherever you are at now, take one step. And the result of that will be more peace and more happiness. The Buddha was born in this world for the welfare, for the benefit, for the happiness of humanity, of devas, of all beings. Because his teaching brings the happiness, the joy, the peace that we all want. It doesn't make us more miserable. The Buddha taught suffering only to encourage us to move away, to move towards peace by following the path. So the Buddha's teaching brings more joy, more happiness, more peace, not more suffering in life. So I offer these teachings to you this evening. I hope that it will be of some value in your study and your practice of Dharma. But as I said, because I don't know you, first time I've met most of you, then it is possible that the way I express Dhamma or teach Dhamma may not be so easy to understand or of such relevance to you. And if that is the case, I apologize. But on the other hand, if you do find it meaningful, then please make use of it. And also now I would like to offer you the opportunity to pursue discussion of Dhamma. In other words, things that are of interest to you, either with regards to what I've said or what I haven't said. If there are questions, points of comment, points of criticism, and points of difference, I'm very happy if you would share that now by asking a question or making a comment. Feel quite free to do so. Yes. Mm. Well, to elaborate on anicca, dukkha and anatta, the three characteristics of mortal existence. It's the characteristics of conditioned existence, the characteristics of the conditioned realm, mortal realm, whether it's the deva realm, human realm, hell realms, any realm. It is all the same. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. It's pointing to the nature of this experience that we call life, mortality. Because we can't, now anyway, we don't know what it's like to be a deva. What it's like to be up in the deva realm, I don't really know. To be in the hell realm, I don't really know. But I know what it's like to be a human being. And with the human mind, the human body, in this human world, physical world. We know that much. We can try and verify the teaching here. So anicca is simply pointing to the fact, and it is a fact that needs to be verified, that mortal existence, everything in mortal existence, everything is impermanent. That's why we call it mortal, you see. Mortal means something that is born and dies. Or it's impermanent. Mortality, everything is impermanent. Everything that comes into being dies. Everything that arises ceases. Everything is in a constant change of flux. Physical and mental. Your mental states. In actual fact, the mind changes even more quickly than the body. The Buddha actually said it would be wiser, or it would be better if human beings would consider these bodies as themselves, because they last longer than their states of mind, because they change so quickly. You wake up in the morning and you feel really great, and then somebody says something to you and you feel miserable. Your mind just changes like that. All it needs is somebody to say something and you can go from heaven to hell. One leap. In one moment. From the happy-go-lucky to the miserable person. Anicca means impermanent. Everything in this realm is impermanent. Whether it's our possessions, whether it's our physical bodies, whether it's our mental state, our knowledge, our thoughts, our ideas, our views, our beliefs, our likes, our loves, our hates, our moods of depression and elation. It's all impermanent. The good and the bad, all impermanent. This is just the way it is. Some of us think, yes, I agree with that. You don't agree with that. You don't believe that at all. Emotionally, deep down, you don't believe that. That's because that's not the way you live your life. That's not the way we live our lives. We don't believe that. We say we believe it. Yes, I believe the Buddha. Everything is impermanent. I know that. But we don't believe it deep down. Emotionally, we don't live our lives based on that understanding. Emotionally, we're continually trying to grasp and hold for dear life. That's why there's so much suffering. That's why there's so much tension, so much inner conflict, so much sorrow, so much anxiety, so much fear. Where does it come from? Inability to accept and be at peace with impermanence. We don't believe it. Still the hope yes, maybe I can find a person who will be permanently in love with me and I will love that person permanently. We don't think it, but that's really how we want, that's how emotionally we feel. We latch on so much to everything. Our minds will not open to the fact of impermanence. That's why when there's death, people are in shock. They cannot accept. What is more natural than to die? I don't know anything more natural than to die. Perfectly natural. Once you're born, you have to die. That's all there is to it. Perfectly natural. Just when, that's all. But no, very few or very rare can individuals accept that. The resistance is tremendous. That means we don't believe, we don't acknowledge, we don't accept anicca. Okay? But the Buddha pointed, anicca. Every aspect of life is impermanent. Nothing stays. Everything that comes, goes. Everything that arises, ceases. Everything you have, you will lose. It's not to frighten you. It's just a fact, just the way it is. So, if we appreciate that fact, dukkha is very easy. Dukkha does not mean misery. Dukkha in the three characteristics does not mean pain, misery, suffering. No, dukkha just means it cannot satisfy you. It's unsatisfactory. It cannot truly satisfy you. Its nature is impermanent, so it can never give you permanent happiness. That which is impermanent cannot give you permanent happiness. That which is impermanent cannot satisfy your need for permanent happiness. That's all it's saying. It's not saying that all of life is miserable. No, there's a lot of very lovely things in life. We come here this evening, this is lovely, isn't it? Well, it's lovely for me because I'm sitting on a chair. Maybe it's not lovely for you sitting on the floor there, and it's actually a very lovely place from my perspective anyway. It's cool, quiet compared to KL, and it's very clean and very nice people. It's lovely. And there are a lot of lovely things in life. We meet lovely people. We have very many pleasant experiences in life. Not miserable. There is miserable experiences as well. There is unpleasant, but there's a lot of pleasant. But all of it is not satisfactory because it cannot satisfy. Even when we're happy, it doesn't last very long. And what's more important, even in that moment of happiness, as long as we still are unenlightened, as long as we're still attaching, as long as we are still resisting truth, even in that moment of happiness, we experience fear. Fear that it will pass, because we know it will pass. Even when you're enjoying yourself, there's that little blemish. Oh dear, this is going to come to an end. Isn't there? Just even when you're really so happy, there's that little nag, that little voice, and this is going to come to an end. You're eating this beautiful, delicious ice cream, and then, oh, I'm nearly finished. Will I be able to get another one? And there's that. So that even the joyful, pleasant times we can't enjoy because we're not willing to accept the limitation. We see the rose and immediately we're afraid that it's going to wilt. We're worried. We see beauty and we fear it's going to lose it, change. So we can't even enjoy the pleasant experience. But that's something extra again. The fact of dukkha in the three characteristics simply means that because the conditioned world is impermanent. It can never satisfy. It cannot give true happiness to us. That's all. That's all. It may be pleasant, unpleasant, but it cannot give us true happiness. But no more than that. Anatta simply means that all of this that is experience, all of this that is life, is not really me or mine as a permanent personal entity. Just not really what I am. It's not really me. It's not really what I am, and it's not even really mine. Now, this is the most difficult one to understand. If you don't meditate, this is just ridiculous. You cannot possibly comprehend or accept. Anatta, not self, makes no sense, because everything in our field of experience is reinforcing atta. Like the senses, you see, eyes and ears and nose and tongue and body. These are all reinforcing my existence, because I see you over there. That's you. You're the object. I'm me. I can hear you. That's you. This is me. So the senses are always making object, and when there's an object, obviously I'm the subject. This is me. Because there's an object, there must be a subject, me. And so, my senses are always telling me that I'm here, and this is me. Then language itself, the way we speak, the way we think, is all based on the duality. Me, I, what I want, what I need. It's all coming from this center, based me, and that out there. Language, you can't avoid that. And your instincts, animal instinct, is based on me. My gratification, my preservation. That's what animal instincts are. Self-gratification, self-preservation. That, again, reinforces this feeling of that I am me. And so this is a very strong, really, really strong, fundamental, all-encompassing commitment that everybody has. I exist. It's unquestionable. But the Buddha says, there is this body, there is this mental experience, there is this condition in nature, but within this there is no me. That's amazing, isn't it? It's challenging our whole way of thinking, our whole way of feeling, our whole way of seeing. It's a challenge to you. Most of us cannot possibly accept it. And I usually don't even encourage people to accept it. I encourage them the other way. I say, yes, you have a self. Please find yourself. Find yourself. See if you can find this self. You have a self. Everything, you're so sure, you feel, it's so deep. I am. And that's such a deep feeling everybody has. All right, go for it. That's what they say in Australia when they mean, do it. Go ahead. Find this self. Where is it? Who is it? And this, of course, must be the most interesting challenge of all. It must be the most fascinating, intriguing question of all. Because if we don't know who we are, what's the point of knowing anything else? This brings me back to the question that has always intrigued me from when I was a youth. You see, you're learning all these things about the world and everything, but who are you? Isn't that ridiculous? Imagine if somebody stops you on the road and they say, "Who are you?" And you say, "I don't know." And that would be the true answer. Anything else you say is a lie. Not really a lie, but it's avoiding the question. Who are you? Oh, my name is Ajahn Jagaro. That's not who I am, that's a name. Who are you? I'm a monk. Is that what I am? I'm a monk. Oh, who are you? You have to be very, not something trivial answer. You with sincerity. What are you? Who are you? It's for most people quite frightening. Imagine when you go through customs or when they check you at the airport, passport check, and they say, "Who are you?" And you say, "I don't know." Actually, it would be even worse if you said, "I don't exist." I'm nobody. I don't exist. That would be ridiculous too. Now this anatta is challenging us to look very closely to see what is it that we take ourselves to be. Now you can only even approach such an inquiry when the mind is quiet and still. If the mind is still caught spinning in thought and noisy, that's why anatta is not understandable. You cannot understand it. You cannot think anatta. All that you think is always atta. Oh, now I understand anatta. Yes, self. There's another self. To appreciate anatta, we must get beyond thought. The mind must become quiet. It must become still. In that stillness of mind, the knowing stands forth. Who am I? What am I? I am... Yes? You can only see that which you are not. You can only know. You will see that which you are not. You will see so much, and it will not be you, because it will be your object of knowing. Just like you come here tonight, I sit here, you come. If I sit here long enough, you go. You can't be me because you've gone, I'm still here. When the mind becomes quiet, silent, still, and the knowing shines forth clear, all that arises in the mind is seen to be a guest, because it comes and it passes away. So it cannot be what I am. And this knowing itself, the essence of mind is bright and it is knowing. But this knowing can never be a self. And this knowing can never be the object. Knowing can never be the object. If it becomes the object, it's no longer knowing. Knowing is the immediate moment of wakeful mind. Its function is simply to know and make known, to objectify and reflect. It can never become the object. And there is no quality to it other than knowing. And therefore it is not self, because there's no characteristic of a self. There's no one there. Nothing can fit there. Now to understand this, the mind needs to become quiet, and you must look with sincerity. with humility. Take the mind to its source. Go to the source. No, anatta becomes very clear, or more clear, let's say. You don't need to get to the ultimate. If you can begin to appreciate anatta very clearly through this process. This is what the Buddha means by anatta. So these are the three characteristics, just the way things are. Sabbe sankhara, all conditioned states are anicca, dukkha, anatta. Sabbe dhamma, all dhammas are anatta. Even the unconditioned is still anatta. Still not so. Now this is just the way things are. It's not a problem that the world is impermanent, it's just the way it is. The problem arises because we don't accept and understand and know the truth. So then, dukkha in the Four Noble Truths comes up. The mental anguish, the headaches, the problem, the human problem that arises from resisting the truth, rejecting the truth. So dukkha, which is mental anguish, arises in the mind of the unenlightened human being. But for the enlightened human being, the mind is not subjected to dukkha. The world is the world. The mind knows the world. The mind does not suffer because of the world. There's no problem. And this is the goal, you see, this is the goal for all of us to move towards. Well, maybe I'll just answer the question. You see, so many people have such foolish notions about meditation, and it's usually because they themselves have never meditated, or what they have done and call meditation is not what a Buddhist calls meditation. So some people think that meditation is like going into a hypnotic trance. Meditation makes you dull and dopey. Meditation allows spirits to take over your mind. And it's just so much rubbish that people think of. Meditation is the process of developing a healthy, strong, clear mind that is able to be a wonderful tool and blessing to ourselves and to the world. The mind that is undisciplined and untrained is always haunted by evil spirits. Everyone walking in the streets, their minds are possessed very often by ghosts and spirits. The evil spirits of greed, the evil spirits of hatred, the evil spirits of ignorance and foolish thinking, confused minds, the evil spirits of jealousy and envy, the evil spirits of anxiety and worry. These are the evil spirits that haunt the human mind over and over again. You don't have to worry about the ghosts floating about. They mind their own business most of the time. These are the spirits that haunt the human mind and make the human being do sometimes such horrible things. A sane human being wouldn't go out to kill another human being. If humanity was sane, we wouldn't have wars of destruction and horror. That's insane. They're possessed human beings, you see. They're crazy, lunatics. Don't think that the only lunatics are the ones in a mental asylum. It's just that everybody's equally crazy, so that they think they're insane. everybody's equally crazy. Because their minds, they think, because everybody else thinks like that, everybody else has got the same thoughts and anger and all these things, then that's normal. But that's not normal, that's crazy, you see. In Buddhism we say normality, sanity is the mind that is liberated from these spirits, the mind that is pure, freed from greed, hatred and ignorance. That's sane. Everybody else is insane. It's just a matter of degree. Okay? So now, meditation does not weaken the mind. Meditation, the purpose of it is to strengthen the mind. And the strength of mind is its ability to be awake, clear, mindful. Its ability to focus and hold attention. This is strength of mind. This is what gives you power in the mind. Power to think what you want to think when you want to think. Power to concentrate on what you want to concentrate when you need to concentrate. And then no evil spirit will have any, no opportunity to do anything to you, not even the evil spirits that float around. But more importantly, not even the evil spirits or these defilements that normally afflict us over and over again and make us create misery for ourselves and others. Because when we don't have control, when the mind is weak, then we get caught in our fears and we think over and over again, anxiety and fear, or jealousy and anger, build it up until it overwhelms us. We become truly haunted. So I would completely disagree with that accusation. Buddhist meditation is developing right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. This we call the healthy, strong mind. And it is a healthy, strong mind that can be resistant to any evil influences. But there may be, I don't know what other people call meditation, I don't know. Buddhist meditation is this: right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. That's Buddhist meditation. If they talk about going into some sort of trance and some funny states of, hypnotic trance, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know what they mean, but not Buddhist meditation. However, I will say from my experience that some people I do not encourage to meditate. If people have a tendency towards schizophrenia, then I think it's better not to meditate. Because schizophrenia means the mind starts believing its thoughts, you see. They hear voices and they believe that these voices are from somewhere else. And so the mind is very easily, to meditate is not very good. Because meditation is to do too much with the mind. And they will get even more, they tend to go off. They believe their thoughts even more, which is not good. For people who have such a problem such as schizophrenia, usually what I recommend is not to do much meditation, just a little bit of relaxation, and also to do more physical work, physical things, ground themselves in the physical things. But that's about the only type whom I discourage. I mean, people who suffer from a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety, it doesn't matter, it's good to meditate. People who suffer from a lot of confusion, yes, very good to meditate. And ordinary people with ordinary amounts of suffering and confusion and anger and tension, it's good to meditate. I think the criticism is not valid, as from my experience and understanding. Any other questions? don't know so much about TM other than they use mantras, which are either a word or phrase that is given to you, and you use that as the object to focus and collect the mind. And I understand that the instructions and guidance is actually very good. It actually does, it's very clear and very good, and it does help people come to concentration quite quickly, because it's a very easy, the mantra is quite an easy thing to meditate with. So to that extent, it is very similar to, say, Buddhist meditation, where we sometimes can use a mantra too. Or if we're not using a mantra, we use another object. But the intention is to collect the mind on that object. So in that regard, it's very similar. Now then, the question as to whether there's any further similarity or whether they start diverging, one would have to consider what is the basis for that meditation. What is the basis? This is why the basis for Buddhist meditation we call right view, right aspiration. So that it's this right view and right aspiration which makes that technique of concentration have a specific direction, a specific purpose. Otherwise, the technique of concentration is not unique to Buddhism. I mean, every other sect in India anyway, they all teach meditation, they all teach concentration, and they're all able to concentrate and achieve good concentration, maybe even better than Buddhist people. And to this effect, maybe we can consider Siddhartha when he became a recluse, or when he was first seeking, when he left home and was seeking. He went to study under different teachers, and he practiced meditation to very high degrees of concentration. He could attain to the 8th absorption state, which is very, very high concentration. Don't misunderstand that Siddhartha, or the ascetic Gautama, meditated for the first time on the full moon of May when he sat under the Bodhi tree. And he'd been meditating for 6 years. He could just go through the absorption stage just like that. He was very skilled in meditation. Before he was enlightened, he could attain to deep concentrations, deep samadhi. So the question remains, why was he not enlightened before then? What was special about him sitting under the Bodhi tree, where it just says he went into meditation and attained to the 4 jhanas? But he'd done that before many times, many, many times. Why was he not enlightened before? Why was he enlightened now? And this is very interesting, isn't it? Probably one would say that maybe before that, his view and aspiration was not pure yet, was not right yet, was not perfect. Because in many of those sects, as is today, and I expect as it is with TM, is to attain concentration for particular, just thinking that by suspending consciousness through absorption on an object, that's the way, that's the goal. Or even worse, that attaining concentration, then we can develop powers. You can start to fly. And that's a very big seller for the TM, is that they can hop around. They have competition, who can hop the highest. It's very, I mean, they've got very good concentration, because that is the, for that to happen, that means the mind is becoming quite concentrated, and piti, or rapture, is manifesting. And so how that happens. But that is not right view and right aspiration, because the Buddhist what led to Siddhartha being enlightened was when his view and aspiration became really for total relinquishment